go ahead and get started.
Awesome. So today's skill sharing is about callbacks, right? Is that what we're doing? Yeah. Awesome. So I actually do like making cold calls. I'm a weirdo. And mainly because I probably do a lot for work when we do phone banking, but I actually do like to connect with the people who call into mutual aid. And so when I call them, I don't know if folks know I work for Jobs with Justice. And so like I immediately like try to calm them down to make sure that they don't feel like they're like begging for a handout. It's kind of like, yo, I know COVID just intensified whatever happened to your life. And that is nothing that you made. We live in a system that is fucked up, and like, we here to help. And also like calming them down, thinking that it's a loan or it's like an act of service that they have to come back with if they get groceries or if we drop off masks or something like that. And so again, it really is like me calming folks down. Because I don't know how many folks have done callbacks and people are like high anxiety and like nervous still about the world and like what's going on. And so I normally comb through my Airtable emails, and then I make a list of the folks that I'm calling back, just because like I'm a screen bouncer and I'll bounce around between different tabs. And so I like to have my paper list. I'm an old lady. A lot of times I know that like we don't get the address and certain things as soon as we do the intake forms. So I always start by saying, hey, can I get your address first? Just so I can make sure like we connect you with the right people to get the right things. And then is this a good number to reach you at all times? And if not, then like provide me with another number. I also like, how sometimes people don't call back, or they might not pick up the first time you call. And so I text and I say, hi, my name is Ashley. I'm from Mutual Aid. I'm just looking to collect the list of your needs right now. And then maybe they'll text back and then maybe they'll call you back 2 days later. I never really leave a message. Well, half these people don't have voicemails or their messages are full. So I just opt into the texting option. When I take their list of needs, I try to ask like, are you the only one in the household or do you have a family? Because some of them will say I have 5 children, but they won't say like I have 5 children where 3 of them are high school age and 2 of them are preschool age. Like sometimes getting that breakdown is helpful for me. I know when I need to go and get groceries for a family or when I'm reaching out to my ward to ask them for supplies. And then like I was asked about dietary restrictions because we can't assume that everybody's on like a regular diet. Some people are on dietary restrictions. I had an older lady whose granddaughter like has some kidney disease and like she can't have high fat foods. And so like how do we make sure that whoever's doing the grocery run understands that and she can get stuff that she can eat. And so thinking about that. Also ask them if they have transportation because sometimes we can send them to food banks or a food drive rather than having to deliver it. Um, Asking when's the best time for us to deliver it because some of these folks still go to work, some of them don't. Also, I'm pretty honest about like what we can and cannot do with them. Like I don't want to overpromise anything. And so when some folks, like I had an older lady that's like, I just want meat. Like, don't bring me anything else, just meat. And I was like, I'm gonna try to make that happen, but like we know with most of the food that we pick out from some of these places, it's a lot of non-perishables and peanut butter and jelly and things like that. And so figuring that out with folks, yeah, when's the best time? What are they allergic to? All that good stuff. If they need like beds or clothes or something like that, also again, not over promising, but like give me a list and we're gonna do whatever we can do to get you something. So making sure they understand that. I always give them my phone number and tell them like if I promise you groceries by Thursday and you have not received them by Friday, please call me. When we were giving financial aid out, I would tell people like, please give us like 2 weeks to try to get this to you. I'll try to put it in a little faster, but like we'll see what we can do. Um, So yeah, again, like the over promising, I just really try not to. But also like making sure I have a set of services that I know is a lot easier for them to get to. So like bill support or like rent assistance or something that you know might be happening in your ward that other folks might not know about. Making sure you have a list of that stuff. But yeah, always offering them the support of calling back and sometimes just being a really good listener because sometimes they want to just talk before they even get the list out. And so that's always interesting. And I am not a social worker by any means, but I can listen, you know, and offer some support. And then if I do know somebody that can give them a call and say, hey, I just want to pray with you, or I just want to listen, that has been helpful. Like I've had a woman who her daughter was murdered right before COVID, and she like took in her grandchildren, and it's just been a lot. And so her and I have developed a relationship. And then like people who live around the corner from me, I immediately let them know you live 2 or 3 blocks from me. I'm your neighbor. Just kind of starting that trusting relationship. And also like you can always call me as well. Like, and not just food. Like if I'm going to Family Dollar or something, I like the only elderly people, sorry, I will call them back and be like, do you need toiletries or some things? Because a lot of the elderly people, this is Remy, they don't go out, they don't get out to get any of that stuff. And so I like to make sure that they can still have their toiletries and things to wash their clothes and all of that good stuff. Um, yeah. And then we know we have some of those people that will call you back a lot. You know, I would encourage you to like give yourself some time. And if you don't feel like you have space to answer that call, like don't answer it and call them back the next day. Um, when you have time, like don't let this be a burden on you because we can only do as much as we can do. And so, like, remembering that, because some of these people will call you like 4 and 5 times or text you, especially when we were doing financial support. And so, like, calming them down to be like, yo, like, we have a certain amount of people who are volunteers. I do let them know that I'm a volunteer who has a full-time job. So, like, I might not be able to get back to you fast. I have meetings during the day. So, like, really helping them understand how to communicate with you, their needs, and like setting up just like a text checkup. Hey, how you doing? You all need anything? That's pretty much how we do it. I guess any questions? I feel like I just talked a lot really fast.
I wanted to circle back to the first thing that you were saying about like the priority when you first get on the phone, helping people kind of calm down or, you know, lessen their anxiety. And so do you have some specific examples or tips around that?
Yeah. So like one lady, I feel like a lot of people who I get over here have autoimmune diseases, where they are just like freaking out to go outside. Um, because like they told people you have high blood pressure, like that's a precondition that a lot of African American people have. And so like these older folks don't want to go out. And so really comforting them to be like, okay, so do you need a mask? Will that help you get out? Or are you like, you know, kind of confined to your home to where like you just cannot ease your anxieties and go out? And so like talking through that with them to be like, do you need a buddy or do you need a ride? Or do you need a mask? Like that part. But then like when you talk to people, like ask them, so what do you do for work? And a lot of them will be like, well, I was a janitor or I was a server. And it's like, okay, so you could probably not afford many things. Like I just flat out go there just because we know that a lot of these folks are low wage workers. So like just ensuring them that like I work for an organization that fights to raise your wages constantly. And like I'm not gonna stop that fight just because I'm helping you on the phone. And so like you're not alone. There are millions of people under this same condition. Like you are not the only one who was laid off. And just like you know, we'll get over this together type of message. And like, you know, you just got to pick up and start over. And so really, it's that listening thing. Like they just want to be listened to most of the time. Yeah, but don't go into savior mode. Like I would, like that's my number one thing is don't go into savior mode. When you start going into savior mode and start like overproducing and over promising things, like it's just sets up this expectation that's not going to happen. And then like you don't want to feel like you're going to let them down either. So like don't go into that mode.
I'm curious to know how like you build community and also like people's comfort level in reaching out. Some people that I've, you know, done callbacks to are very comfortable asking for what they need. And some other people, you know, this is the first time they may be requesting help, or maybe they have some barriers to requesting what they need. And so I'm wondering how you get through those barriers and what strategies you use to get people the things that they need or get past those things.
So I like to tell people like we are the people too. Like we're people. We're not the United Way. We're not the Urban League. Like I don't want to see a check stub. I'm not going to ask you for your social security number. I'm not going to do any of that. I am here to help you. And like, I feel like that drops a wall automatically because they're so used to going to food banks and having to show a check stub or having to show how many people are in their household. And I'm just always like, so we are not those people. I'm not going to ask you for anything. I just want your address and your phone number so I can have some contactless delivery. Like that's it. And then like just the whole, you call me if you need anything or if you did not receive what I have said I could do for you. Like that creates some level of accountability where they feel like, okay. And like these old ladies are like, what you say your name is again? And repeat your phone number. Oh, and they call back, honey. They call back. Somebody just called me 3 times today. But that's because she's trying to get us to deliver some stuff to her on Sunday. And so like, you know.
So, Ashley, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's something that we've run into too, is like people really want to tell you like why they deserve help or like their backstory and stuff like that, or like why they're so in need. And we don't do means testing either. We just basically, if somebody needs it or says they need it, that's good enough for us.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how many hoops people feel like they have to jump through.
Right.
To get, even if you don't ask, like that's just kind of what they go into when you first start talking to them.
Yeah, because they're not sure like what this is. They're like, what is mutual aid?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're a bunch of volunteers. And I try to like tell them the backstory, like, you know, food share and those things from the Ferguson days. Like we really just try to help working people like maintain a healthy life while this shit's going on, you know. It was just, you know, we just had Julia who was already organizing people anyway and trying to figure out, you know, how we thrive mutually. So
yeah,
we started going again.
Yeah, I think it's also helpful to like let people know, like a lot of the stuff you're saying, it's like, it's also helpful because at least on our end, like we're experiencing like less donations than we have before. But we've also always told people like we can do what the community will finance and like what, you know, like the extent to what's out there. So like, it's kind of like your neighbor, you know, sometimes your neighbor can help you out. Sometimes they can't, you know? Right. So it kind of like you said, we're not United Way. We're not these big, you know, agencies, you know, that, you know, we're kind of just redistributing stuff that's helpful to people who need it when we have it, you know?
Yeah. And I like help them understand like sometimes I give up Saturdays because I'm just like food bank hopping for people and like building these boxes, or like we have a storage unit over here in the 21st ward that's like actually in South City that sometimes I have to meet Kimberly Ann at to get groceries. And so like, you know, just explaining to them even the process that we have to go through as volunteers to do this. Like I'm actually giving up my time. So like, please appreciate me, please. Yeah.
It sounds like you've been organizing for a while, so I'm curious, are there like things that you like wish that you had known when you first started organizing that new organizers could learn from you? Because there's a lot of, I think, new people in our network that don't have a lot of organizing experience. And so what are things that you wish you knew when you started organizing that you've learned over the years or through this process?
Probably just my number one thing is like just keep it real with people. Like give them your vision of the world and like, you know, that we all in it together message like actually is helpful sometimes. But letting folks know that like you didn't create the system. Like you were just born and shit ain't been fair, you know. So that, but also like being clear on why you volunteer, like why you're doing it, sometimes helps them know that you're not just like some weird person. Sorry if anybody works with Catholic Charities. From like Catholic Charities, I'm just calling people in your zip code, you know, because some folks are doing that, right? They're just calling people and checking in and not doing anything beyond that. But yeah, man, just listening and like, you know, I hear you're struggling with X, Y, and Z, and I can offer this support, you know. And then, like, you know, just telling them, like, I often remind, like, I am not a social worker. While you're talking to me, like, I hear you and I'm gonna talk to you, but like, I don't know if I'm saying the right things all the time, but they're okay, you know.
I think that's something that the advice about sharing who you are and why you're doing this is really important in terms of just like humanizing. It's something that we talked about with the hotline too. I think even with a typical peer counseling or peer support helpline, your focus is supposed to be like on the client, but it's good. Like we encourage people to sort of be themselves on these calls and just be like, I am a human. Like sometimes I, you know, like, hey, can you give me a second to pull this thing up? Or even just saying who you are. And obviously not going into like taking up all the space or just like
Right.
you have to be there to like listen to them. So you don't want to just call to talk about yourself, but being able to break down that barrier of like, yeah, I'm just like a shadowy figure who's like calling you is really important. And as an example of like sort of for me, I think also just letting people know that like this entire situation is like not okay, you know, or sort of like not justified. And it's not just, the issue is not just that like you can't pay rent. The issue is that like we live in a society where these things are still expected to happen while we're going through a public health crisis. So like even yesterday I was texting somebody and after I had already talked about like the stuff that she needed, these types of size diapers and all that kind of stuff, I was like, oh, I sent you an email about some utility stuff. And then, yeah. And then I was just like, we're just doing what we can. It's a lot of people struggling right now, you know? And then she said, yeah, times are really hard. Money isn't easy to come by. And it's because for sure, it's messed up that nobody is getting help or support. Everything is collapsing. Meanwhile, people are still getting evicted and have to pay bills. So I think just like affirming those perspectives that like none of this is okay. And like we're doing the best we can in a really shitty situation. And the entire like not, they shouldn't have to be going through any of this, you know. I think sort of also helps to build some trust and at least like shares the perspective that we're coming from.
Yeah, I think that something else Ashley said that rings true for me, that is just something that I feel like is work that we constantly have to do, is like not portraying that we can fix all or even most of the problems that people have, and just kind of like letting people know that like we are not like these saviors that come in from outside of the community. We are actually just the community trying to do like fulfill our responsibility to do what we can with what we have. And so like not portraying it like you have this problem, let me figure out how to fix it, like kind of being like, this is the support that we have, you know. And if you can help in that way, that's fine. But I think you can get into a lot of trouble by just trying to be that person that's fixing everything or wanting to fix everything. And I think that a lot of us are kind of conditioned to operate that way, and it can be really overwhelming and kind of, yeah. So that makes a lot of sense to me, Ashley.
Yeah. Don't martyr yourself. Yeah, don't do that. It's like we only have so much in this network of aid. And so like, and then people are like really surprised that we do so much with like so little.
Yeah.
And so it really shows them that like a few people can get together and try to do this. So why can't these corporations do it? You know,
Mhm.
it makes them look silly.
Or these large agencies that have,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been getting so many complaints. Like I got a call back the other day. Like I called the United Way, and I was
Mhm.
just like, "Here we go."
Yeah.
And they were like, they gave me 3 other numbers to call, and I was like, "Girl, I probably could have gave them 3 other numbers." Like,
Someone on our team got cursed out by a United Way like phone answer thing person.
oh my
Also one
god.
today that registered yesterday, and they said, I registered for 10 agencies. You're the first one that's called me back. And I was like, damn, like, that's awesome. And so like, and they're like, we really direly need food. I'm like, we'll get it to you today. Like, it's like, but it's like, we are not an agency. We're a network of like 915 or 920 like community members. And like, we've like grassroots sourced over $200,000 people. Like, this is like amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so-
I think that's like the other side of it too, is like lifting up both what we are and our own limitations, and also lifting up how big this network is. Like it is, every time I say this number, it's always growing. Like, you know, it was like, it's already over 900 people now. So just helping people understand that like, yeah, this is a network, this is a community. These are the things that we have done together with no, you know, real resourcing. And so like helping people not just, you know, not to sort of like put it in their face, but to help them understand what is possible when just like regular ass people get together and do something.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Any other questions for Ashli? Anyone else who hasn't said anything yet?
And thanks, Sarah, for delivering and making people feel okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's really, you know, yeah, to like whatever extent feels sensible. It's like, it also like, yeah, I share that like, yeah, you know, it really does like help nourish my spirit to like have these engagements with people that feel like purposeful and safe and intentional. Because I know, you know, like without like enforcing this idea of like, if you receive from us, you must also give, it's like,
Yeah.
I know that I'm only like, you know, a couple steps or like, you know, accidents, mistakes, like whatever, it's away from
Right.
needing like the
Right.
exact help that I'm providing. And so it's like, you know, sort of cosmically, like I'm just giving back to the system that I know is like,
Yeah.
you know, paying back materially and spiritually. I guess like in terms of making callbacks, because I've done the training, but I haven't actually done a shift. How often would you say you speak with people that are like in a kind of like imminently unsafe situation? And like, how do you navigate that? Like people in like intimate partner violence situations or like domestic violence and like, you know, things like that.
I haven't ran into any of those yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I would just punt it back to y'all. I would be like, yo, I got this situation going on. And probably talk to some other social workers that could help. Yeah, but I mean, like, real talk, I'm dealing with that next door, and like my neighbor and I like talk to the lady every once in a while, but like, shit, right now people just really aren't trusting things, or like comfortable with moving out. So yeah, I'm also dealing with that with Anthony, who's an unhoused person. So like, trying to call through some folks that work in shelters to see like if there's somewhere he can go. Yeah. But I do not offer up my house. I do not. None of that.
If you need any resources on that, I have a good relationship with the Temp Mission people, and I could always reach out to them too. They know all.
Cool. Yeah, somebody from Temp Mission works with us on Food Share. Allie? I think so.
I don't know Allie. I know Sharon and Mel and Alex. Okay.
Thanks for reminding me of that. But yeah.
I have another question if no one else does. I'm curious about like systems breaking. So you talked a little bit about we're really trying to create an agency. You know, like we do have a lot of systems that are going to be happening, but we're really trying to not, you know, create an agency through mutual aid. So like, what are strategies and ways that we can break systems through the work that we're doing, or like in your work through, what organization do you work for?
Jobs for Justice. I think
Yeah.
I think sharing these stories of the folks that we get from mutual aid. I think like when you're doing that intake, I always ask them, so like, what do you do? What do you do for work? How many kids do you have if they have children? If they live somewhere, how long have you lived there? So kind of like getting their story, because people are always looking for those stories. But also like the data that we're capturing on the mutual aid side is going to be awesome to say like, you know, if we were like St. Louis City should create a fund so we could do this, we could be like, yo, we just helped X amount of people with donations from Deaconess and other places. We think if y'all close the workhouse, we should get $5 million going towards our fund. Like that's a demand. But yeah, I think the more we collect data and run into people and their stories and like what is going on in St. Louis and why are people getting evicted, like the more we can elevate that stuff and come up with policy and demands of budgets and things, because like it's not people's fault that their rent is raised, you know, to it was $400, now it's $1,000, you know, like that's not their fault. It's not like your boss heard your rent goes up and so they gave you a matching raise, you know, like ain't nobody doing that shit. And then like how many of these people actually worked for a WashU and they were getting furloughed and not getting money, or like working for Jiffy Lube and remaining on the schedule so they didn't have to get unemployment. Like people have to hear about how shitty a lot of these corporations are to their people and how shitty like our healthcare system was to their workers during this. And so like getting those stories out so people, you know, straighten up and fly right around here.
Yeah, I think it's very true. It's like the people that have to go through this shit on the daily are the ones that understand the best, like how messed up all these systems are. And I think like us just like being in constant communication with folks like helps us deepen our understanding of it in the process. So it's like, okay, yeah, we say we want to dismantle this thing, but like here are the actual ways that it affects like actual people every day, you know, and like why that's like not okay, right? And then two, like what Ashley was saying about connecting people's experiences to each other, I think it's interesting that now we've kind of, as we grow, we start to get a better understanding of like what are actually the trends that are happening in the community, so that we know, okay, like right now, the big thing that's on a lot of people's minds is housing and evictions. Like shutoffs are going to start happening again soon. People are going to get started evicted soon. We don't necessarily have like a massive plan or strategy around it, but we know that it's happening because we talk to people every day who are, you know, like afraid of being evicted or who are already facing those threats. So I sort of think of us as like, we can kind of be the kind of first people that folks call when they are in these situations, and then be able to like understand how to respond, and also how to plug people in on the side of like folks who do have capacity and are interested in organizing, thinking about like, okay, yeah, like maybe you're willing to make some groceries and deliveries to your neighbors, and that's like a pretty easy thing to understand or to start with, but like where can we then get you involved in actually organizing and being involved in some of these campaigns to create these like policy or bigger systemic changes, you know? So helping people go through those steps as well, of thinking like, okay, yeah, I could deliver groceries to my neighbors, but it's like, you could also do any number of things to like help to close the workhouse, or, you know, or to write to your alderman, or to put pressure at different places. So I think it's just kind of a entry point for a lot of people to get a picture of like what's really happening, and then figure out how they can fit into it.
Yeah.
I have a question, if that's all right, to do some more.
Go for it.
We've already talked about this, I think, just in what you were saying about how you approach talking to folks. I was wondering if you have other volunteers or folks that do callbacks or get in touch with folks in your area or pod? I know there's a lot of like pod leaders on here, especially like newer folks. Like, do you have other folks that do that? How do you like communicate with them or orient them? Just like delegate tasks, try to combat the savior mentality stuff, any of that kind of like tips about any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I have one volunteer that helps me, Karen. And so like I gave her pretty much the rundown of like what I talked to them on the phone about. But like I know Karen, and she's like ran phone banks for me in the past. So like again, this is somebody I trust that I know can do this skill. But also like think about that person being like detail oriented almost. So like, because they're gonna need to make a list, right? And they're gonna need to make sure they get back to you, and get somebody that's not like a nervous Nelly that doesn't want to make the calls, you know. And that's not Karen for sure. And so like, yeah, I do have like one volunteer, but like, I don't know why I cannot find people to help us in the middle and like over here in North City. Like it has been like almost impossible to be like, yo, can you help us? Like just call these people back. But like the system Karen and I run is like, she'll call some folks back. She doesn't have access to Airtable. Like, no, she just emails or texts me back like their name, number, address, and all of that stuff. And I have her like I was asking her like, give me the time that you contacted them, so like I would know when to call back and all that good stuff. But like, yeah, I know like I've set up with Harlan like a grocery delivery list for the alphas. And then like make sure you follow up, because like sometimes shit gets delivered, sometimes it doesn't. And so also again setting up that system with them, like if you have not gotten these things by this day, please call me back. But yeah, if I was gonna set up a team, I would love to have 3 people, you know, that could help with this. And but somehow shit's really slow, and yeah, it's just how it's banging out. And when my partner would come by, like I would have him do some calls every once in a while. He has another phone, right? So if I'm working, you can call people back. Yeah, so that works sometimes. Yeah. But I think we are going to see a second wave. So like, I think also just setting up the expectation of like how low and slow it is. I'm lying. My sister and my friend Tempest also helped me pick up food. I'm lying when it comes to that. So like, if I need to grab a bunch of food from like one of these Urban League drives or another drive, I'll have people in cars to pretend to be households and like grab all this stuff for people. So yeah, I deploy people in that way on the weekends, especially on the weekends. I'm like, yo, you got a car and an extra person? Let's go. And then we all meet up, make the boxes, and I deliver them. Yeah. And if you need car work, my friend's doing discounts for us because we're serving the community.
Oh, that's tight. Okay, you should definitely send that through.
Wait, where are you getting discounts?
My friend, he's a diesel mechanic at the airport, and he's just like, I can give y'all discounts on like work that I do in my own garage because like
Nice.
y'all are serving the community. So
Yes.
like, yo, if y'all need, like, I had to get my breaks done from doing between these deliveries and food bank. Ooh, Lord.
Sarah needs new tires. We need her to have tires. She delivers for us. Like,
yeah, I ran over a nail yesterday while I was making deliveries.
Let me know what you need, Sarah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. This is really helpful. I'm going to stop recording now. So